I've never been humiliated so publicly by people I once called family. My name's Alex. I'm 34, and I was supposed to be the best man at my younger brother's wedding. At least, that's what we had discussed for over a year. I'm not exaggerating when I say I was involved in almost every step of the planning. Venue scouting, the early tastings, even helping him find a jeweler for the rings when he didn't know where to start. I'd always been the dependable older sibling. Growing up, I played more of a third parent than a brother, especially after Dad passed when we were teens. I worked part-time jobs to help cover bills while Jake got to focus on football and dating. And I never resented that. Not once. I liked being the guy people could count on. But I guess when people get what they want from you long enough, they stop seeing you as a person and start seeing you as an asset. The first red flag came a few weeks before the wedding. Jake called me up, voice nervous, and said, "Hey, so about the best man speech." I was thinking of having Connor do it instead. Connor, for the record, is his fiance's cousin. A loud, obnoxious wannabe influencer who's been trying to build a following on TikTok by pulling pranks in supermarkets. I thought Jake was joking, but then he followed it up with, "It's just, Abby's family thinks it would be more entertaining." I didn't say much. I just said, "Sure. Your wedding, your call." And I meant that. I swallowed it. I didn't want to make a scene, didn't want to cause stress. I figured maybe they'd regret the decision later, but it wasn't my hill to die on. What I didn't realize was that it wasn't just about the speech. It was about pushing me out of the picture, piece by piece. The second red flag was when I got an email. An actual generic email, not even a text, saying the rehearsal dinner had been downsized and my presence wasn't required anymore. Jake didn't mention it, didn't call, didn't offer an explanation. Again, I gave him the benefit of the doubt. Maybe it was just a budgeting issue. Maybe Abby's parents were footing the bill and didn't want too many people. It hurt, sure, but I didn't want to make it about me. Instead, I focused on what I could still do. I spent time putting together a gift I was genuinely excited to give, a custom-designed honeymoon fund, with prepaid resort credits, spa packages, and a $5,000 check tucked into a handwritten card. It wasn't just money. It was a reflection of all the times Jake and I talked late at night about where we'd travel if we ever had the time or means. I picked Bora Bora for them because he once told me it was his dream place. The morning of the wedding, I put on my suit, tied the same tie Jake had bought me for his graduation, trying to make it sentimental, and drove out to the venue, which was this upscale vineyard about 90 minutes out of town. When I arrived, I was surprised there was no signage for seating or ushers. Just a few people standing around awkwardly at the edge of the main event space. I recognized a couple of Abby's distant relatives. One of them even looked confused when they saw me. A staff member eventually led me around the back of the reception area, past the main tables with gold-trimmed name cards, lush centerpieces, and champagne flutes. I kept looking for my name. Then I saw it. Or rather, I didn't. There wasn't a name card for me. Not at any table. Instead, there was a folding chair. Behind a curtain. Literally behind a sheer decorative curtain separating the photo booth area from a row of emergency exit doors. I thought it was a mistake. I stood there for a minute, blinking, holding the gift bag in my hand like a fool. Then Abby's mother walked by, heels clicking sharply on the stone floor, and gave me a look that was somewhere between amused and smug. "Oh," she said, raising an eyebrow. "They said you were still coming. Thought you'd gotten the hint." I blinked. "What hint?" She smirked. "Well, not everyone gets a table, sweetie. Only real family." Then she patted my arm like she was being gracious and disappeared into the crowd. I was stunned. I wasn't even angry yet, just numb. I kept telling myself there had to be an explanation. So I went to find Jake. When I did, he was taking photos with Abby and some of her family. He saw me and smiled, but it was this tight, guilty kind of smile. Like he knew exactly what was happening and had already resigned himself to it. "Hey," he said, stepping aside for a second. "You made it." Yeah," I replied. "Jake, I don't have a seat." They stuck me behind a curtain. He rubbed the back of his neck. "Look, I'm really sorry, man. Abby's family kinda took over the seating. They said it was too late to make changes." "You're the groom," I said flatly. "It's your wedding." He avoided my eyes. "Yeah, but it's her day, too." I didn't want to start a fight, not right now. Then, right on cue, Abby walked over. Dressed to the nines, makeup flawless, veil lifted for the photo ops. She looked at me with this performative smile and said, "Oh wow, you showed up." We didn't think you'd still come after everything. I just stared. Everything like what? She giggled. I mean, not being part of the speech, the dinner, well, you know, you just kept inserting yourself. But it's fine. You can chill back there. Think of yourself as extra. Every wedding needs a little extra. And that's when something inside me snapped, not in a yelling, glass-throwing way. Just this deep, cold stillness. I looked at her. I looked at Jake, whose face was pale and helpless. Then I looked down at the gift bag I'd been holding like it was some kind of badge of honor. Slowly, I smiled. Not out of happiness, more like realization. Cool, I said, voice calm. I'll take my extra $5,000 and go. And just like that, I turned around and walked past the shocked silence. Behind me, I heard Abby gasp and whisper, "Wait, what?" I didn't stop. I didn't need to. I had more to say. I just wasn't going to say it there. As I stepped out of the venue, the late afternoon sun hit me like a warm slap, jarring, but also clarifying. I stood on the gravel path just outside the winery entrance, the buzz of conversation and clinking glasses fading behind me. I looked down at the envelope still tucked in the gift bag, my carefully written card, the check, the spa passes I'd coordinated with their resort concierge months in advance, and I let out a quiet laugh. It wasn't funny, not really, but it was either laugh or scream. I slipped the envelope out, opened the flap, and without hesitating, tore the check clean in half. It was a satisfying sound, surprisingly loud in the still air. Then I tossed the pieces back in the bag, folded it once at the top, and calmly walked to my car. I didn't speed off or slam the door. I just drove away with a kind of peace I hadn't felt in months. But the thing about walking away with dignity is, people can't stand it. I had barely gotten home when the call started. First one from Jake, then 3 more. Then a text, "Come on, don't do this right now." Then another, "She didn't mean it. You're overreacting." Overreacting. Right. Because being seated behind a curtain like an unwanted prop at your own brother's wedding is totally normal behavior. It took everything in me not to throw my phone across the room. I didn't reply. Then came the kicker. Around 10 p.m., I got a message from someone I hadn't spoken to in almost 2 years, our cousin Maya. She'd been at the wedding, one of the few people in our extended family I still trusted. Her message just said, "Hey, I saw what happened today. I need to show you something. Can I call?" I texted back, "Yeah." She called within seconds. Her voice was low, like she didn't want to be overheard. "I didn't say anything earlier because I didn't want to make it worse," she said. "But Alex, Abby's mom planned that. The curtain thing. She actually said it during brunch last week." She laughed and said, "We'll seat the boring one behind a drape. He won't even notice. He's the quiet one, right?" My stomach turned. She said that. I asked. "I swear," Maya replied. "Jake just kind of sat there. Didn't defend you. Didn't even speak up. That part hurt worse than anything Abby had done. Jake could have shut it down. One word. One look. But he didn't." Maya paused, then added, "Also, you weren't on the final guest list. I saw the printout. You weren't even assigned a real table. They stuck your name on a post-it last minute. You were literally a placeholder." Something about that word, placeholder, hit deeper than it should have. Like I was never really part of the plan. Just the guy who filled in gaps, covered the bills, played support until the spotlight came. And now that he had a shiny new family, I was obsolete. I thanked Maya and ended the call. I sat on the edge of my bed for a long time, staring at the envelope I'd dropped on the nightstand. I reached in, pulled out the card I'd written. On the front, it said, "For the next chapter." Inside, I'd poured out genuine warmth, hope for their future, and a line that now felt almost laughable: "I'll always be in your corner." Not anymore. The next morning, I got a call from Mom. She wasn't at the wedding, she'd had surgery recently and couldn't travel, but Jake must have filled her in, because her tone was sharp. "Alex, I know it wasn't ideal, but it was their wedding," she said. "You didn't have to make it about you." "I didn't," I said flatly. "They did." She sighed like I was being dramatic. "You know how Abby's family is. They're controlling. Jake didn't want to start a fight. So he started one with me instead?" Silence. Then, softly, "They're family now, Alex. Don't burn bridges." I almost laughed again. Bridges? That bridge was reduced to ashes the moment Abby smirked and called me extra. I didn't respond. Not to her. Not to Jake's texts that kept coming throughout the day. The last one just said, "Can we talk?" She feels bad. It got out of hand. Right. Now it got out of hand because I walked away. Because I took my presence and my check with me. And maybe that's when it clicked. They never wanted me at the wedding. They wanted my money, my silent support, my gift that would have made them look good in front of Abby's extended family. And when I didn't give it, I became a problem. So I made a decision. I logged into the shared airline account I'd used to book their honeymoon upgrade. They didn't know I'd used my points for it, and canceled the entire thing. The bonus spa credits? Revoked. The dinner reservation at the 5-star Overwater bungalow? Canceled, too. The next morning, I made coffee and sat at the kitchen table, watching the steam swirl while I let the silence stretch. It was peaceful, a rare kind of peace that comes after the realization that you're no longer going to beg people to treat you like you matter. Then I opened my laptop and started typing. See, Jake might have forgotten that I'm not just his older brother. I'm also a financial analyst, one who had, over the years, gently helped him out of messes he never told anyone about. Credit card debt, lease paperwork, a few oops moments with taxes that I quietly helped fix through a contact of mine at the firm. He had no idea just how many of his loose threads were held together by me. One of those threads was their shared wedding account, a joint fund Jake had asked me to manage 6 months ago when they were overwhelmed with RSVPs and vendor costs. I never touched it without permission. I'm not like that. But I did have access. And I still had administrative control over the app that handled payment scheduling for their venue, florist, DJ, and of all things, the bounce house Abby wanted, ironically, for the reception photos. I didn't drain anything. That would have been petty. But I did something better. I froze it. Temporarily. Legally. As the account's primary administrator and contributor, I had the right to flag any suspicious activity. So I did. I submitted a claim noting unauthorized usage and potential misuse of funds. It would take 3 to 5 business days to review, during which time all vendor payments would be held. By that evening, I got the notification that the freeze was active. The fallout didn't take long. At 9:42 p.m., my phone lit up with a call from Jake. I let it ring, then another, and then a string of increasingly panicked texts. Bro, what did you do? Why is the florist saying we're past due? You said you'd help. Why are you sabotaging this? And finally, this isn't you. Don't let them poison you against me. I stared at that last one for a while. Because it was classic Jake. Deflect, redirect, guilt trip. He wasn't asking what they did. He wasn't apologizing. He was begging me to forget it, to clean it up again like I always did. But something had changed. I didn't want revenge in the dramatic, flaming bridges sense. What I wanted was clarity. I wanted Jake to see what it felt like when someone let you down publicly and then expected you to quietly get over it. I wanted him to feel even an ounce of the exclusion, the sting of being treated like an afterthought. The next day, I got a message from Abby. My stomach twisted when I saw her name, but I opened it anyway. It was short, cold. Whatever point you're trying to make, you've made it. Can you stop now? That was it. No apology. No ownership. Just annoyance that I hadn't accepted my role as the family doormat. I typed a reply. Deleted it. Typed again. Deleted again. Finally, I settled on something simple. You're right. I made my point. You both made yours, too. Message received. She didn't reply. But the silence didn't last long. 2 days later, Mom called again. This time, her voice was sharper, more urgent. Jake told me the wedding vendors are threatening to cancel if they don't pay. What did you do? I protected myself, I said. From people who clearly don't want me around, unless I'm holding a checkbook. Alex, he's your brother. You can't just turn your back on him over a seating mistake. I closed my eyes. It wasn't a mistake. And it wasn't just about the seating. You know that. She hesitated, but only for a beat. They're young. They made a bad call. But weddings are emotional. People get carried away. You've always been the rational one. There it was again. The unspoken family contract. You be the calm one. The stable one. The one who forgives, absorbs, fixes. And honestly, I was tired. I was tired of playing that part while Jake got away with playing the golden boy. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't snap. I just said, maybe it's time someone else learns how to fix things. I ended the call. That night, I took the last step. Remember the airline points I used to book their honeymoon? Well, those points were earned through a shared business travel rewards program I managed, not just through flights, but through referral bonuses, credit card use, and years of optimizing my expenses for maximum accumulation. Jake didn't know that half the points were technically mine, but he also didn't ask. And because the reservation was in my name, booked with my login, they didn't even notice when the itinerary quietly vanished from their calendar. No alerts were sent. just a reservation that no longer existed. I didn't gloat. I didn't make a scene. I just watched from the quiet comfort of my apartment as the storm I didn't start began to swirl around them. They found out 3 days before the honeymoon. Jake called me at 11:47 p.m. Not texted. Called. Which, in our family, meant it was serious. I stared at my phone as it buzzed on the counter, screen glowing with his name. I let it go to voicemail. He tried again. And again. By the fifth call, I picked up. Not because I felt guilty, but because I was curious. His voice was sharp with panic. What's happening, Alex? The resort says we don't have a booking anymore. Abby's losing it. The flights are canceled. Did you do something? I sipped my tea and walked to the window. Yeah, I canceled it. Dead silence. You what? Why would you? What kind of person does that? I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. The kind of person who spent years helping his brother through financial messes. Who gave up weekends, vacations, and money so you could stay afloat. Who got seated behind a curtain at your wedding while your new family laughed at him. The kind of person who was told he was extra by your bride and watched you say nothing. He was breathing hard on the other end. I could hear his mind racing, trying to come up with a defense. It wasn't supposed to go like that, he said, quieter now. I was going to talk to you after. But Abby, she said we had to keep the peace. Yeah, I said. And that was the price of peace. You're my brother, he insisted, but it sounded like he was trying to convince himself. We've been through so much together. You know me. I'd never. I cut him off. You let it happen. That's what matters. There was a pause. Then, a bitter, so what? This is revenge? This is your way of punishing me? I didn't answer that directly. Instead, I asked, do you know how many times I could have let you crash and burn? How many times I bailed you out quietly, never asking for anything in return? He didn't speak. You didn't just seat me behind a curtain, Jake. You showed me I was only ever valuable when I was helping. That once the check stopped, so did the respect. I messed up, he muttered. Okay, I messed up, but don't ruin our lives over it. That sentence hung in the air like a bad smell. Our lives. Like I had shattered something sacred. Like they hadn't done that the second they collectively decided I wasn't worth a chair. I let out a breath. You'll be fine. Abby's parents have money. She'll post a few sad Instagram stories, get sympathy. You'll rebook your honeymoon. Life will move on. Not with you in it, he snapped, and that's when I knew. He still didn't get it. I didn't say anything else. Just ended the call. The fallout was quiet but thorough. They didn't post wedding photos for nearly a month. I noticed because I checked curiosity more than anything. When they finally did, the captions were sterile. No gushing best day ever. No overused hashtags. Just a handful of obligatory shots, none with Abby's side of the family. I heard through Maya later that the florist canceled on the morning of the wedding due to non-payment, and the DJ brought up the payment freeze during his setup. Apparently, Abby cried in the bridal suite, blaming Jake for not handling his unstable brother sooner. They ended up staying at a local bed and breakfast for their mini-moon. Abby posted a filtered photo of a breakfast tray with the caption "change of plans," but making the best of it, and turned off comments. I didn't respond to any of their attempts to reach out after that night. Not the lukewarm apology email Jake sent a week later, not the text from Abby that said, "We should talk." I didn't mean to hurt your feelings. Not even the call from our mom, who begged me to let it go before it splits the family. It wasn't me splitting the family. That happened when they held the scissors and cut me out of the picture. I just stopped pretending the wound wasn't bleeding. A few months later, I got an invite in the mail. A thick, fancy envelope with gilded lettering. Baby on board. Jake and Abby's gender reveal barbecue. Inside was a cutesy card with pink and blue balloons and a line that read, "Let's celebrate family." I tossed it in the trash unopened. I wasn't angry anymore. I was just done. And being done brought a peace I hadn't known before. No more bending myself into a pretzel to keep the peace. No more financing relationships that only existed when I was useful. I finally started putting the time, money, and energy I used to pour into others, into myself. I took the vacation I had planned for them, but this time, solo. Bora Bora, just like we always dreamed. I booked the same overwater bungalow, used the same spa credits, but instead of sitting across from someone who made me feel invisible, I sat across from the ocean. Quiet. Calm. Honest. It wasn't about revenge. Not really. It was about reclaiming the parts of myself I gave away too easily for too long. The truth is, some families only love you when you're small, when you're manageable, when you don't take up too much space, when your generosity doesn't come with expectations. The moment you grow, the moment you draw a line, suddenly you're the problem. But I wasn't the problem. I was just the first one who finally stopped playing along. And for once in my life, that was enough.